Okay, everyone. Let's get ready with our public hearing today. Sorry for the delay. Lots going on. We'll start with House Bill 896, Maryland Stadium Authority increase in bond authorization.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee. I am Tom Kelso. I am Chairman of the Maryland Stadium Authority, here on behalf of the Maryland Stadium Authority, and with me here today is the Executive Director of the Maryland Stadium Authority, Mike Friends, the Chief Financial Officer of the Maryland Stadium Authority, David Wraith, the Executive Vice President and Head of Capital Projects Development Group, Gary McGuigan, and the Executive Director of the Maryland Sports Commission, Terry Hasseltine. All of those gentlemen, I'm sure that you all know, or most of you know all of them. I'm here on behalf of the MSA to discuss HB 896 and 897. As to HB 896, this bill does three things. It increases the bonding limit for projects on the Camden Yards Sports Complex from the original $235 million that was established in 1986 to $1.2 billion with sublimits of $600 million for each stadium or for each team. The second thing that it does is it increases the money allocated from the Maryland Lottery General Fund from $20 million a year, which was again established in 1986, to up to $90 million. That money would be utilized solely to service debt on any bonds issued under the $1.2 billion cap. But it's an up to $90 million, and all that would be allocated in any year would be whatever was actually necessary to service the then outstanding debt in that calendar year. And then the third thing that it does is that it requires is that for the teams to access any of that money is that we would have to have leases or lease extensions that would be of a duration at least equal to or longer than the longest outstanding bond. So if there was a project that was bondable and we made the decision that it was best a 10-year project, then we would have to have a 10-year, at least a 10-year duration on the outstanding lease in order to, before we could issue those bonds. It also makes a structural change in the approval mechanism for anything issued under this portion of the statute. Is that, after the staff did their work, it would come before the board of the Maryland Stadium Authority. The authority's board would approve or not. If it was approved, the project would then move to approval by the Legislative Policy Committee, a 45-day window for LPC approval. If that approval was granted, it would then go to the Board of Public Works. So this bill is not a blank check allowing the Stadium Authority to do whatever it wants to do with the money. We would still have to go through the two steps that are already in place, which is MSA board approval and Board of Public Works approval, but an interim step where the LPC would have the right to approve before it could go to the Board of Public Works. The rationale for this, in the 30-odd years, or roughly 30 years, that there's been a stadium at Camden Yards, and there's been a baseball stadium for 30 and a football stadium for almost 25, is that we have generated over $1 billion of tax revenues to the state with about $665 million of principal and interest paid on the bonds that have been issued to build those stadiums. So we certainly believe that the economic returns are good for the state, and in order to continue those, we need to be looking at reinvesting in the stadiums in partnership with the teams who really are our partners, while we may refer to them as tenants. they really are our partners, because in order for us to generate the kinds of revenues that we need to derive from this kind of future investment, we need to increase attendance. We need that attendance to continue to be strong, because the better that the teams do, the better that the state does. And the $1 billion that I mentioned, that does not include the incremental revenues that have been derived by Baltimore City and the surrounding counties from having these teams playing in the Camden Yards sports complex. Both teams have indicated support for this bill. I believe they're represented here today. I know they're represented here today. It's a rather revolutionary approach, because typically people look at spending all of that money all at one time, and the way that we envision this being done is as a series of projects in each stadium over a number of years, because even if we went to try to spend all the money in one year, is that we couldn't do the construction in one off-season or two off-seasons. So, we look at this as an evergreen measure, as a way to continue to get lease extensions as we go forward. And so we defer two issues within the state of Maryland. One is having to do with this lease extension cliff that we have to deal with now. And the other is that we extend the useful lives of these stadiums, because it's way, while this seems expensive, it is way less expensive to do this than it is to build new stadiums, which, happens more frequently than I think any of us would like to recognize, because authorities and teams around the country don't do nearly as good a job as our teams and the authority have done in maintaining these stadiums and keeping them so that the underlying foundation of these stadiums have significant additional useful life, provided we continue to invest in them. So, we're happy to answer any questions. I could talk about this bill for probably an hour. I've been asked to keep my remarks brief, but we're here and happy to answer any questions about any of the details or nuances or the background on the logic of these bills. So, and we would appreciate your support.
Thank you. We start with, go ahead, Senator Alfreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm sorry, are other people going to testify, or is it?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the goal of the bill. I think it would just be helpful for me bringing this back to my district to be able to explain a little bit about what it will be buying the team. So if it's appropriate for the representatives to just give us kind of a 30,000-foot view of exactly what the upgrades will be moving forward, to the extent possible, you can share that.
Senator, I can start this off. Is that there are not at this moment particular specific projects. Both teams are working with architects and planners in order to continue to plan what a series of projects might look like. But all of the projects basically break down into two categories. The first, which is the one that's the least appreciated, and that's the infrastructure reinvestment that needs to go on in both of these stadiums. And, when people from the legislature visit and we're with them and they say, wow, everything looks great, they're not with us when we're in the bowels of the stadium and seeing, the work that needs to be done in 25 and 30-year-old buildings. So that's significant, but it really needs to be done. The second are what the teams refer to as fan experience items, right? And so the nature of watching sports has changed so much over the last 25 or 30 years, and the idea, the concept of buying a ticket and sitting in a seat for an entire game, is really not as appealing to the younger generation of fans. And so it's really devising these venues and areas within a stadium that begin to appeal to a wider set of fans, and making sure that the stadiums continue to evolve, over a period of time to where it's always attractive to that next generation of fan. And I hear every year the excitement that, people want to know what the new food experience is at Oriole Park. But, when the Ravens were doing their 3-year upgrade to M&T Bank Stadium recently, is what people wanted to see is, well, what were these video boards going to look like? What are, what's the escalator going to be? You know, is that going to make it easier to get to my seat? And that's what continues to bring fans back to the stadium. The other thing is that entertainment has gotten to be a critical part to what the teams are doing. So it used to be that the teams were in the football business or the baseball business. But today they're in the total entertainment business. And our stadiums are structured, leases are structured a little bit differently, is that we lease the stadiums to the teams on a 365-day-a-year basis. And so they're responsible for programming and maximizing the use of those stadiums all year long. And so the idea of concerts and other events that can take place in the stadium really require different amenities to be in those stadiums in order to make that happen. You know, no single investment is $600 million. But if over a 5 or 10 year period of time, it's not illogical that both teams could get to that level of spending. And then as those bonds are retired, is that the bill is structured so that we can then continue to borrow back to keep it up to that $600 million. And that's where the evergreen feature comes in keeping this so that we don't get to this lease termination cliff that, you know, every authority across the country faces. And we think that this is a creative way to avoid that going forward. So, but I'm happy to have Nick and.
No, that was
okay,
perfect. I
all right.
understand. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So on that lease extension problem, so just as an example, if you do the first part of the job at doing the bowels and the guts of the building, and you've got a, 15, 20-year bond on that, and so then the extension of the lease lasts for that long, and then 5 years later, you decide to do the next fan experience issue, and again, you've got another 15, 20-year bond, that just adds on to the time, and that's how you just keep the lease going, and you keep everybody still involved in the program. Is that
That's correct, although, you know, we would not expect to have infrastructure investment as a standalone investment, because as you begin to do some of the investments that are fan experience investments, that's when it's time to also do the infrastructure investment. So the investments are done, you know, part infrastructure and part fan experience simultaneously. But let's say we do one set of investments that it's a 10-year horizon, and then 3 years later we do one that's another 10-year horizon. We've got to extend that lease out at least as long as the longest outstanding bond, right? So.
Senator Salling?
Thank you. You kind of hit some of what I wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, but, you know, I want to kind of roll off a little bit what the good senator from Annapolis, what she was talking about, because it's an investment that is sure needed. We want to benefit our teams. We want to see them, our area grow in this. I think it's Baltimore is a team well-known as the Ravens, but the Orioles, we want to see that improve too, which we all love that. But I think the specifics are really important, and I think what you were saying were very important. But I think, like down the road, when you have those improvements and you make those differences, be good to have the opportunity to know them even more. Because I know at times and in years there will be some changes, but it'd be for the better, of course. So just knowing those things and seeing maybe what we're doing, and then showcasing those things, let people know, hey, this is what we're doing at this stadium and in even their surrounding areas to make a difference. And when we know that, we can let other people know that, then they'll be coming to the stadium. So I appreciate that.
Senator, I absolutely agree with you, and I think that if, you know, a self-criticism is that, you know, we probably have not, you know, made available knowledge on a more frequent basis to people that ought to have that knowledge, and the legislature, but also the public. And, you know, I think that's incumbent on the authority, and it's incumbent upon the teams to communicate well with people so that they can see, you know, what is going on. It's good, and it's good for their business. to bring enthusiasm. But you also touched on something else that I think is really important, and that is that, you know, we don't anticipate that this may be all the money that goes into the complex. It doesn't prevent the teams from investing in the complex, and it doesn't prevent third parties from coming in and investing in the complex as the nature of sports and entertainment continues to change. It also, like what already has happened on the M&T Bank Stadium side, is that there's significant entertainment investment that's gone in privately south of M&T Bank Stadium, and part of this is to try to incorporate that even closer, you know, into our parking and other things, so that the third-party investment in the surrounding area can really benefit from what we're doing on the complex. So I call it leverageable public investment, that, you know, that's the way to get, you know, even higher returns in the future, and we're really excited about that aspect of it.
Senator Young?
Thank you. Just a quick statement and then a couple questions. I like the approach. I don't want to ever see either of these teams leave here. I quit following football when the Colts left. It took me a while to phase back in. I'm a Raven fan now, but I knew a bunch of the Colts personally, and it just tore me apart when they left town. And as far as the Orioles, I can still name more players on the 1954 team than I can name on this team right now, though I hope that changes with some of these young guys coming up and making the team work. But first question, this bill only relates to those two stadiums, right?
It only relates to the Camden Yards Sports Complex,
That complex,
right? So,
right.
yeah, you're correct. The warehouse is there, Camden Station, the parking lots,
whole area
but the complex itself,
Yep.
yes.
What sources does the state's income come from? Is it a straight-out lease and that's it, or do we get percentages when other type events come? What are the revenue sources that come from the two stadiums?
Yeah, well, it's multiple levels. You know, each team's lease is slightly different, but the rents basically cover the operating costs of the stadiums themselves, or the MSA share of the operating costs of the stadiums themselves. And it also contributes to the operation of the Maryland Stadium Authority. So as you know, is that the Stadium Authority does not get a budget appropriation from the general fund annually for operations. All of that comes from the collection of rents at the stadiums and at the warehouse. But there's also an amusement tax.
Yeah.
And so, and the amusement tax is split under the original statute. It's 80% to the Stadium Authority and 20% goes to the city of Baltimore. There are income-derived, a portion of the amusements, advertising, concessions, you know, everything else that goes on in those stadiums, we get a piece of.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously, as we go forward and we look at specific projects in the stadium, we're going to want to look at each project and making sure as to what the economic returns are to the state, and make sure that, you know, our agreements or our arrangements on a project-by-project basis, you know, justify the state putting in their portion. And there may be some investments that we may advise would be better done by the teams because they're going to get so much more of the revenue out of them. So it's really, you know, we got to work on that going forward.
Just one last quick question.
Sure.
I was Mayor of Frederick for 16 years and built the stadium there and brought the team in, and won't get into, unfortunately, what happened with it. But the local government set the amusement tax. What relationship is the, you touched on it a little bit, what is the amusement tax in Baltimore? And you said you get, what, 20% of it?
No, we get 80% of it.
80%.
And the city gets 20% of
Okay.
it. So it's 10%.
10% in Baltimore?
Yes.
Okay.
So
thank
we're
you.
getting 80% of 10%. It's not insignificant.
No.
So that, you know, a concert, as an example, which is an additional event, if there's $1 million or $5 million of concert revenue, right off the top, we're getting 80% of 10%, without having to take any additional risk. So
That's good
it's
source.
significant.
Yes, thank you.
Other question, Senator McCray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone at the Maryland Stadium Authority for the work that you all do. You all came to brief our respective delegation, just in reference to the subject matter. One of the questions that was brought up was a high school game, very big high school game that typically is played every year, Poly and City. They used to play at our football stadium, but unfortunately they haven't in past years. Have you all figured out, I guess, because we're doing a state action to make sure that we properly extend state resources to do what we're supposed to do. And it's the right thing to do. But I also think about the young folks and how they could benefit from the stadium that their parents may have some vested interest in. Have we broached that conversation in reference to this bill, or have you all had further conversations about what that looks like?
We've had some brief conversations, but after the briefing that we did, Mike and I went back and kind of downloaded on, the issue. And, and I can let the Ravens obviously address it on their, from their perspective. But it's our understanding is that, when the field was an artificial turf field, obviously there's no damage to the field with a game. When the team converted back to a natural grass surface, which was requested by the players, for safety reasons, is that the concern is that if you get a rainy Thanksgiving Day or whatever day the game is, and the field gets torn up and you have an NFL game that Sunday or Monday, is that it increases the risk to the players. And so that's been the reason that the games were not held after they converted from an artificial surface to a grass surface. I think that their representatives are here today. I think they're hearing your plea, and I hope that they will, take that, into consideration because, but it's not the Maryland Stadium Authority that's saying no. We understand, and, both the Calvert Hall Loyola game and the City Poly game, are mainstays in Baltimore high school football, and playing their final games at the stadium each year, Memorial Stadium, and now M&T Bank Stadium has been, it's part of legacy, and that's important. There's no question about it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just for a second, first I just want to start by saying again, the Stadium Authority is a phenomenal partner to Baltimore City, not just stadiums, not just schools, like you all are doing a phenomenal job. But I guess I just want to go on record and I just want to state in public that some of our young people may never get the opportunity to be able to see or participate in the stadiums until they get old. And this is a phenomenal opportunity. And as you stated, this is legacy. That City Poly game was folks were very distraught because that was an opportunity that our young folks got to shine in a way that isn't always in front of them. So just thank you all for your leadership, and I do hope that the powers that be are listening to this and can help us to get to a place where there is some middle ground met on this issue. Thank you again.
Senator, thank you. And one thing that you've raised an issue I think that's really important, and there may be an opportunity that working with you and some of the other delegation from Baltimore is that, we might be able to open up stadiums off-season for tours. And while people might not be able to go down on the field, but, there's a lot of people who may not be football or baseball fans or go to concerts that have never been inside one of these fantastic facilities and, go down the locker rooms and, walk around it and see the thing. Up close and be able to ask questions of the people who actually maintain and manage the stadiums could be, really great. And we have a great relationship with Baltimore City Schools, and maybe we could make it, a project one year where we try to get as many of their young people into the stadiums and, give them some experience there outside of just athletics.
Very good. Just one final question from me on the LPC process, the Legislative Policy Committee. Just to be absolutely clear, that's not a review by that committee, it's an absolute approval as it moves forward?
It's an approval, and that's a deviation from, every other, even all the schools construction that the legislature has brought to us.
That's why I wanted to,
Yeah.
Put it on the record. Okay, I do have a couple, well, I think one person else signed up. No one else really wanted to speak, did they? Okay, I was under that impression. Okay, very good. We'll move on to the second bill now, 897. Mr. Kelso?
Oh, yeah, I kind of went to sleep there. Sorry, Senator.
That's okay. So,
I was
You've
thinking
been
of all the
you've been
things I
working
didn't
hard.
say
You've been
about the
work-
last bill.
you've been working hard.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and members of the committee, thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Stadium Authority to advocate for HB 897. HB 897 has some similarities to HB 896, and Senator Young, I think it, dovetails in nicely with, your experiences in Frederick, is that there are sport and entertainment venues in Maryland that have public investment in them, some by the state, some by the counties, some by local municipalities, or combinations thereof. And these facilities are in need of significant reinvestment. As an example, the minor league baseball stadiums, of which we have 3 that currently have major league affiliates. We have one that has an independent league affiliate, and we have one that does not, at this moment, have an affiliation, has a developmental league team. And in order to keep these affiliations is that these stadiums need to be upgraded. They need to have reinvestment put into them. And so that's one example of what this bill could be used for, which is in order to be able to support communities such as Frederick, Aberdeen, Salisbury, and Bowie, as well as the stadium down in Charles County, in order to be able to make sure that they have facilities that are at least good enough to be able to get major league affiliations. And most people probably don't realize this, is that the Baltimore Orioles are, if not the only, one of the only teams in Major League Baseball where 3 of their 4 affiliate teams actually plays in the same state in which they play their home games. So Delmarva, Aberdeen, and Bowie are Orioles affiliates, and that's really important that that continue. But there are enough other venues in Maryland that are in significant need of investment. In PG County, as an example, there's an opportunities to do equine events at the new Equine Event Center, or the existing Equine Event Center that needs to continually be upgraded. At Fair Hill, we need to continually upgrade the Fair Hill facility, the special event zone that's at Fair Hill, for the 5-star equine event that we have there. And there are entertainment venues in Maryland that are in need of support, or concepts for new entertainment venues that need to have a mechanism for those ideas and concepts to be all treated similarly, and that would be under this bill at the Maryland Stadium Authority. There are also communities that are looking to develop sport and youth and amateur sports complexes that are really and these are all economic development tools, right? They're all designed to create economic activity, either in the youth and amateur level, at the minor league baseball level, at the world-class event levels, such as the equine events, and then, for top-notch sports, or top-notch entertainment within Maryland. So this bill would allow for the Stadium Authority to have a capacity of $200 million of bonding authority to be utilized for such types of investments. It would allocate up to $25 million a year from the Lottery General Fund to service that debt. And it would not be $25 million just carte blanche given annually to the MSA. It would be only an amount equal to what was necessary to actually service outstanding debt. It also has a component for the creation of a $10 million special event fund. And, I talked before about, the way that entertainment and sports are so intertwined today, is that Maryland does a very good job through the Sport and Entertainment Corporation of Maryland in recruiting youth and amateur events to Maryland. We need more facilities to hold those events, but we do a great job of recruiting them. The major league teams do a great job of doing what they do at the major league level. But where we, have a deficit in Maryland is the ability to recruit really high-level professional and amateur events that are large economic development measures that require a 5 to 7 year lead time, where we have to commit to promoters or event organizers in order to say, yes, we will support you, and we guarantee them that we can give them X number of dollars in support of that. If we don't do that, we're competing with enough other states that do that, that we lose those things. And so, one of the things that we're really far along with, and Terry Hasseltine is here, and all credit is due to Terry, to the Lieutenant Governor, and to the Mayor, in the World Cup 2026, having Baltimore and now the Baltimore DC joint bid. It's going to cost us something to be able to have those events in Maryland. And so this special event type fund would be used for that, for Major League Baseball, to bring the PGA Tour back to Caves Valley, to secure the equine events that, will be brought to PG County and to Fair Hill, as well as other intercollegiate events and other major events such as CIAA basketball that just came to Baltimore, that, funding is necessary in order to secure that for another 3 or 4 year commitment. And so that is the additional part of that bill. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know it's a little more complicated than the other, and it's.
First off, on the last subject, I think your idea of tours might even be better than you think. I can tell you, I'm probably the oldest person in this room. I've toured both of them, and I was fascinated, and I think a lot of people would be, and they would be very popular. But on to this bill. Very frankly, I was tremendously disappointed in the Orioles when they called me and told me they were moving the team. We were the top drawing team in that league for over 30 straight years. And the reason I was offered was that we didn't have the workout facilities that we needed. And I thought, so you waited till you moved the team to tell me that I might not have been able to get them there? And it sounds like, I hope, with this bill, with city participation, maybe we can put those facilities in. And while I doubt we're ever going to get an Oriole team back, I'd like to get a minor league team back again. And
Senator, it is, the idea of this bill is that these needs can come to the authority as early as people know about them.
yeah,
All of the projects would be analyzed both for cost and economic output. What kind of economic returns can we get? A level of investment, could be committed by the authority. And so we can do it on a preemptive basis. And I think that preemptive is far better than waiting until something
Yes.
has happened, and then, trying to fix it afterwards is very difficult. So that was the concept. That's exactly the concept. And Frederick was really front and center in our mind as we were putting this bill together, because we don't want the same thing to happen to any of the other minor league community stadiums, but we'd like to find a way, because Frederick was a huge success, and to figure out a way to make it that way again.
yeah, my brother, who was a terrific baseball player, argued with me when I worked to get the team in the stadium there. He said it wouldn't work. And it worked greatly. And believe me, our community really was tied to that team. By the way, there I am in my Keys uniform. My granddaughter dated Manny Machado.
All right.
My son had a lot of the players at his house regularly. My family and the whole community was just really, really tied to that team, and were brokenhearted when I left. So hopefully with this, not only the other stadiums, but we could get back into the game. And I wish with the Orioles, but if not, with someone else.
Senator Rosebeth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to focus on the Blue Line Corridor piece of this, because I don't understand it at all, frankly. What would the money be invested in? It's not tied to keeping the team, I gather.
Well,
So it's not a stadium. Give me a little overview.
So, Senator, I don't mean to punt, but I will say is that the amendments for the Blue Line Corridor were not, MSA amendments.
I understand.
Gary, you probably can answer the question better in terms of, what specific projects we've been asked to work on.
Great.
The MSA board did approve at our last meeting, which was on Tuesday, an MOU to enter into the preliminary work with the county to be able to assist them on the project management portion of that. But the funding part of it is what's in this bill. So I'll let Gary answer that question.
Good afternoon, Gary McGuigan with the Stadium Authority. So the county has asked us to help them with 5 initiatives in the Blue Line Corridor, which include a charter school, eventual demolition of the stadium. There's a civic plaza, a library, and all public use requests of Prince George's County. So we were asked probably a couple of weeks ago, and an amphitheater also.
Amphitheater, huh?
So we haven't gotten into any specific discussions with the county, but the board approved the request, and that's the next step.
And the MOU addresses the specific projects you're going to look at with them?
It will do. Yeah, the request was just a letter listing the 5 initiatives, and the next step is to negotiate an MOU.
And it does not include it does not include a new stadium?
Correct.
Okay. Could you provide us with a copy of the letter or the MOU or whatever the paper is you're referring to?
Yep. be happy
Great,
to.
thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Griffith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and let me thank you all. I actually know that we had some conversations with the delegation probably over the past year around the importance of doing economic development targeted in the Blue Line Corridor in central Prince George's County. So I, for one, was thrilled to hear the Maryland Stadium Authority taking a look at Prince George's County. As a matter of fact, I was trying to think, Mr. Chairman, from even back in my days in the House, I know of the Stadium Authority and echo the sentiments of my colleague from Baltimore City, your great work. But I actually could not think of a project in our history where, at least in my 25 years in interacting with the state's budget, that the Stadium Authority had been directly involved in an economic development project or a sporting project or anything of this type in Prince George's County. Is my recollection correct, or is that accurate?
In terms of an actual project, I believe so. I've been there 27 years. We've done 3 studies that I can recollect. One is the ballpark. We also did a study at the
DC
Equestrian
United.
Center, and we're currently finalizing a tennis study. But in terms of actual projects,
right.
that is correct.
Okay, so this would present, this bill actually presents an opportunity for Prince George's County to be a part of what other parts of the states have experienced, which is this wonderful partnership and having a project that engages the Stadium Authority and all of the talent and expertise and dollars in Prince George's County. And I guess I was just curious, I did hear you say the board recently approved the letter that was presented by the county executive. That happened.
Senator, that's correct. We approved it on Tuesday. And the opportunity, the excitement for the opportunity is shared by the MSA as well. We've always felt that it was important for us to make sure that the knowledge and the capabilities of the authority were available to all of the counties in the state, and all jurisdictions in the state, And we've tried over the last few years to make more people aware of what it is that we do. But so this is a real great opportunity for us to work with the county.
Yeah, I just can't emphasize enough just how excited we are to have an opportunity in central Prince George's County, having watched the Ocean Center, Ocean City Convention Center work and work in Montgomery County and Baltimore City and all of that, just really excited about this opportunity, and most importantly, about the potential for economic development in central Prince George's County. So I just thank you for your time and your work and look forward to celebrating some work together down the road. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions, I guess, or some comments along with it. I live in far western Maryland, up in the mountains. Most people up there have no idea what you do or who you are. We don't have any blue lines. We don't have any purple lines. We don't have any pink lines. We don't have any lines. So I'm listening to your comments on this bill, and you talked about high schools and so forth and so on. So would this bill fit? Frostburg State University is looking to build a pretty large recreation kind of facility that we don't have in far western Maryland. I think the furthest you work in western Maryland is with Hagerstown with the stadium they're working on. So would this bill fit that, working through you to help try to get that built? We have certain programs, Frostburg does. They have the Wooten basketball program who brings hundreds of people to the university. Our area of the state's had, and you probably don't deal with these things, but twice have had the World Whitewater Rafting Championships in our neck of the woods. Our people buy lottery tickets. So if you can't answer some of these things now, I'd like for someone from your staff to come talk to me so I can get you in touch with some people from Garrett and Allegheny County to see what you may or may not have to offer them in relation to this bill. If there's opportunities to get some of this money to build some recreational type facilities. Now, I know someone says, well, Frostburg State University, state facility, state ought to pay for it. We're putting some money in this year to try to get it started. But we don't have the opportunities that most of these areas you're talking about have. We'd like to get some of those opportunities. And since you're talking about spreading around, I want to make sure we spread it the whole width and depth of the state. So I guess the real question I have, would that kind of project fit in this bill you're just talking about?
Potentially. I mean, one of the first things we need to do, Senator, is come up with a process to be fair, right? Recognizing the economic impact to the state, the value to the state, and we haven't done that yet. So one of the things we need to do over the next couple of months is come up with a process for analyzing requests from all over the state that fit the criteria of the bill. So if I could, I'd like to take a few months and get back to you after we've done that.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I'd like for you or someone to come and see me before those couple months so I can get you in touch with some people in my part of the state that may have some questions on what may or may not fit what we're talking about here.
We'll be happy
Before you
to
do a
that.
study, because if you don't meet with them, they ain't gonna give you anything to study.
Understood. Be happy to do that.
I mean, you know, we're out of session Monday night, but you can give me a call, meet you somewhere, or you can come out to the great western part of the state and we can have a luncheon.
I love Western Maryland. I'd be happy to come up. I'll give you a call next week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator?
Yeah, just to clarify the issue that Senator Edwards raised, does this bill restrict what you do under it in terms of studies to a particular series of projects or geographic areas, or is it open to the kinds of things he was suggesting as written?
As written, it's open to consideration of projects that he was suggesting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There's a very specific process on the release of money in the other bill. Is it similar or different? How is that structured? Obviously, it's a lot smaller projects that would be coming along, but curious how that's planned out.
Hey, Dave, I'm going to get you to talk about the $200 million portion, if you would. The $10 million portion of the bill, that's just approved at the MSA board level. But projects under the rest of the bill,
Yeah, don't touch it.
So, I mean, typically what we would do is there would be a request made by an entity asking to seek, funds from the $200 million. We evaluate the process. Once that is approved and we know how it's going to be funded, a financing plan would be put together. And the
Approved
finance.
by the board of the Stadium Authority.
Correct. The financing plan would be approved by the board, by the Stadium Authority, then it would come down to the budget committees in Annapolis for them to review and comment within a 45-day period of time, and then it would have to go to the Board of Public Works for approval before any debt could be issued on these projects. We would also have to work out an MOU or some type of operating or construction agreement with the entity that's involved, and that would also have to go to the board for their approval too.
so this is a review and comment.
Correct. The budget committees is a review and comment. That's currently what's in place now with the other things that we do.
Got it. Senator Edwards.
Just to expand on what I said, not to get on you all, but there aren't very many people sitting in this room that supported and voted for the bill to allow lottery funds to be spent to build Oriole Park at Camden Yard. I'm one of the few. I'm not sure there's too many in here that were here then. And one of the few Republicans at that time that voted for it, and caught heck from some of my colleagues, because what are you voting for that for? Well, why I voted for it is part of what you're bringing up, because it benefits the whole state. Those stadiums benefit the whole state. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming from. I know you're spreading out from where you were. I'm just asking you to spread out a little further, get known in some other parts of the state you aren't known in, and maybe we can move forward on some stuff. So I just wanted to bring that out. And being a former football player, but not in the new stadiums, I was drafted by the Colts when they were still in Baltimore, played in the old stadium, the Memorial Stadium, so won 2 games. Got close. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other questions? Is anybody else who needed to speak? Oh, anyone else needed comment? Senator Elfreth.
Thank you. Is there anybody from Prince George's here in the room? Okay. Just similar to my last question in terms of, we're going to be back home. I happen to be home in this district in a couple days, and I'd like to be able to explain all this to my constituents. Can you give us just a 30,000-foot kind of view of what this bill would mean for Prince George's County?
Sure, thank you, Senator. So I'm Angie Rogers. I am the Deputy Chief Administrative. I know
Nice to
we've
see you.
spoken and not ever met in person. I'm the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Economic Development for Prince George's County. So this is a huge opportunity for us. I think, as Senator Griffith expressed, first of all, the ability to have the Maryland Stadium Authority, who are such the good housekeeping seal of approval for these kinds of facilities in the state, to have them be able to work on facilities in Prince George's County, I think would be huge for us. The Blue Line Corridor for us is the anchor initiative for our economic development platform. We consider it to be the next big opportunity to establish another full-scale stadium district in the state of Maryland. I think it's huge for the state to be able to have two of these sort of operating and not cannibalizing each other, but operating in the state, really supporting each other and increasing our ability to draw both national and international events to the state of Maryland, as well as to support some of our other goals for youth sports activation, et cetera. So for us, this is an opportunity to really add some of the support around our stadium district. A lot of times we see stadiums develop and it's just a stadium, and I think someone said it earlier, these aren't just sporting facilities anymore. They have to be 365-day-a-year activated districts that serve sports, serve entertainment, serve arts and culture. And so what we've asked the Maryland Stadium Authority to do on our behalf is to help us develop those facilities around our stadium district that really help us turn it into a year-round activated area. And so we are looking forward to it.
Thank you, and so nice to see you in person.
Nice to see you in person as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Corbin?
Thank you. Just a quick question in regards to some things you guys are talking about in Prince George. I think it's great, and to my friend, the senator from Prince George, I think you're going to have a wonderful experience. The Stadium Authority has been nothing but exemplary in our project. The question is, the first bill was talked about with the funding for the stadiums in Baltimore, some of that funding being contingent on long-term lease agreements. Is the Prince George's development, is that contingent on a long-term lease agreement with the Washington Commanders, or is that just totally separate?
So I can speak to that. So it's totally separate.
Okay.
We did not ask the Maryland Stadium Authority to engage on anything related to the Commanders. This is all about sports, entertainment, cultural facilities
Sure.
in the stadium district, but not related to the Commanders.
Understood. Thank you.
When you say not related to Commanders, you mean not necessarily related to Commanders?
Not to the construction of a new stadium for the Commanders. I'll put it explicitly that way.
Okay.
But certainly it helps to build a stadium district that we hope will support their continued presence in the county.
Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm pretty excited about the bill as well as the other two senators from Prince George's County. As a person who grew up in what is commonly known the inner beltway of Prince George's County, that blue line corridor, it's been a long time coming, a lot of revenue and taxes. And as my good friend from Mountain, Maryland mentioned, folks who have participated in the establishment of the Stadium Authority and the lottery and all those things. Look, it's time to give, for us to recognize and realize where these amenities can be placed and can be beneficial to our state. So we look forward to working with you all going forward. And I happen to be one of the few folks, or some of us in the state, who represent multiple counties. So there are a number of projects that are going on, and look forward to continuing the relationship with you all. So,
Thank you, Senator.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions? We can take about a 5-minute break before we do the voting. I'd like to talk to Mr. Calso for a few minutes. Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's get started again. We only have 25 minutes. Let's get started again. Yep. Okay. Let's start by voting on the two bills that we just heard. 896. Okay. Let me just make a quick comment that, just a clarification to the question I asked earlier, that the LPC will go through its normal review process, the 45-day process, and they will not necessarily have a vote. Still ultimately going to the Board of Public Works, all those decisions. Okay? Any comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Excellent. Next bill, 897. All those in favor? Opposed? Very good. Thank you all very much for coming today. So, okay. What do you have? Which one of these?
Yeah, I got House Bill 158, your secondary.
Okay. All right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And then I haven't, I'm not on the list, but I have this cross file from the House that you can vote to.
Didn't we do that already?
You did the Senate bill. You concurred with the House and then it's the Senate bill. This is the House bill.
Okay. All right, go ahead and do that.
Okay. So the first one is just, it's not on the list because we just got it, but House Bill 838. This is the cross file to the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board. You all concurred with the House changes to the Senate bill yesterday, and this is identical to that.
All those in favor? Opposed? Very good, with its special name. All right, House Bill 158.
Okay, House Bill 158, you guys are secondary on this. It came out of Finance. It is a little different than the cross file. This is the one that set up two grant programs, one microloans as well as just a New Start grant program. As you guys passed it out, while there were no strict mandates in it, there was an assumption of cost. What the House did is actually codified and put in a mandate for that assumed cost. So as it sits before you now, it would be a total of $500,000 mandate for about 5 years, I believe. Did I say, what did I say? 500,000 is what I
Yes.
meant to say. If
You did
that's-
say that.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
It would be 300,000 for the microloan and then 200,000 for the grant.
Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that just goes over to Finance.
Yep.
Okay. 785.
Senate Bill 785 is
Why don't you pull the mic over, Matt?
Baltimore City District Court Jobs Court Pilot Program bill. This would create a pilot program for a jobs court within the district court that's in Baltimore City. It would include a $500,000 mandate for the judiciary, the administrative office of the courts for fiscal year 24 through 28 to get the program up and running. There's also an amendment that JPR added to this. This would allow, if you remember this issue from last year, this would allow the judiciary to retain $12 million before the end of the fiscal year so that it doesn't revert back to the general fund. They'd be able to do a $12 million budget transfer to send the money back to the
Land records.
Land Records Fund.
Yes.
You're secondary on this.
I just have a quick question. What is it? I don't understand what jobs court is. I don't, we discussed it last year, I forgot.
It's a great bill.
I mean, it ain't apprenticeships, but.
I know, but it's close, it's close. That's why I want to know.
But Judge Pastore has been running a program for the last several years. The Ravens, a number of nonprofits been helping out. They have the data that basically show when folks come into her district court, she places alternatives in front of them. So they work with these different career partners to be able to make sure that, and she follows it because you can check in 90 days. It's all, not saying she's a probation officer, but she's a judge that cares a great bit, and she's figured out a way to be able to offer
Cool.
alternatives. to
All right, thank you. That's all I was looking for. Sounds great. Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. 424.
House Bill 424 is the bill that would implement the Governor's Salary Commission recommendations for the compensation for the Attorney General, Comptroller, Secretary of State, and State Treasurer.
Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? $14.77, local bill, we got a letter?
We got a letter, 1477. 2 years ago, Washington County went from imposing the mobile home parks tax as a gross receipts tax to a assessment sort of that mimics the property tax assessment process. They never actually implemented it, and it wasn't really workable. And now they would like to go back to the gross receipts tax. So this bill would retroactively.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, Senator Quarterman. I'll have the salary one. I'll take the stadiums. And we're gonna take what? Oh, Edward's getting his. And Senator Young? Okay, we still got stuff to do, so we. Very short.
It'll be very short.
Yeah.
When I look at the salaries of the secretaries, first off, our main constitutional thing is to support education, yet we made the Secretary of Education salary lower than most of the others. On our seal is a farmer, fisherman, and whatever, yet those two departments are making less. And the housing department, which is a very important one, and labor, which we just had a lot of trouble with, those 5 salaries are below all the rest of the secretaries, and I just want to comment that I think it's wrong. They should be equal with the rest, but I know it's done.
This bill just deals with the constitutional officers, right?
Yeah, so this wasn't included as part of that? I couldn't tell. Are we dealing
No.
with this?
No. No, it's just what, 3, 4 constitutional officers?
Yeah,
4 that's it.
well, I still want to make that comment on that.
Duly noted, duly noted. Okay, hang out. We may have to do one more thing, but I need to consult here. Okay. One more.
All right,
Kim?
got it. So, House Bill 685, you guys have that in possession. It is a cross file. House has your bill. This is about the county libraries and the regional resource centers and their per capita funding. We needed to hold on to this until the final posture of the budget because supplemental budget was brought in to increase the funding for these. What that forces you guys into is, because it kind of reset the base for 2023 from current law, it kind of rejiggers all of your decisions for purposes of the per capita in here. So the supplemental for fiscal '23 for the regionals, we'll just talk about that, was a 44-cent increase up to $9.19. So the question, and I believe the proposal, is to continue a 40-cent increase for the next 4 years. And then for the county libraries, the supplemental brought in a 40-cent increase. And I believe there, the proposal is a 20, sorry, I had that backwards. I always do that. The counties received 40 cents in the supplemental. The proposal is to continue 40 cents in the out years. For the regionals, they also received a 44-cent increase, but the proposal is to do 20 cents for the next several years.
Senator?
What was it when the bill came in? What did it recommend?
Well, so the bill came in, if you left current law the same, in 2024, the funding would all go down, only because the supplemental budget increased it in '23. So the pace of the 40 and the 20 matches the bill as it came in. It's kind of all rebased at another number because of the 2023 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Favorable.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, I think that does it. See you on the floor.
Okay.
Bingo.